You know, every so often, a story comes along that sounds like it was ripped straight out of a Hollywood script. We're talking secret missions, ex-special forces soldiers, and a wild plot to topple a government. But this was all too real, and it ended in one of the most bizarre and public military failures you'll ever hear about.
And that right there, that was the dramatic announcement from the mission's mastermind, an ex-Green Beret named Jordan Goudreau. He was declaring the start of something called Operation Gideon. It was supposed to be a death blow to the regime of Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro. I mean, it sounds audacious, professional, pretty much unstoppable, right?
Well, the reality, which was broadcast all over Venezuelan state television, was something else entirely. Instead of some elite special ops team, the world saw these disheveled-looking men, including 2 Americans, getting rounded up in a little coastal village. Get this, one of them was even carrying his passport and his driver's license on a covert mission.
So that's the big question, isn't it? How does a mission supposedly led by elite soldiers end up like this? Was it a betrayal? A massive miscalculation? Or was this thing just doomed from the very start? This whole affair, which got nicknamed the Bay of Piglets, is just a tangled web of ambition, secrecy, and spectacular failure.
Okay, so to really get our heads around how this all went so wrong, we're going to break it down. We'll start with the raid itself, then we'll look at the soldier for hire who cooked it up, the secret political deal that totally fell apart, the anatomy of the failure, and finally, where all the key players ended up.
All right, first step, the Bay of Piglets. See, the world didn't hear about Operation Gideon from a successful coup. No, they heard about it from the wreckage being broadcast by the very government it was supposed to overthrow. And right away, you have these 2 completely different stories clashing. On one side, you've got President Maduro, who's claiming his forces stopped a foreign invasion dead in its tracks. On the other side, the US State Department is calling the whole thing scripted and staged propaganda. And caught right in the middle, 2 captured Americans and a ton of unanswered questions.
So who was the mastermind behind this bizarre operation? Well, the whole story really centers on one guy and his private security firm.
Okay, so this is the guy, Jordan Goudreau. Through his company, Silver Corps USA, he basically sold himself as this patriotic soldier for hire, handling risk anywhere, anytime. He was a decorated veteran, but here's the crucial part. He was the former superior officer to the 2 Americans who got captured, Luke Denman and Aaron Berry. To them, he was a leader they knew, respected, and most importantly, trusted. Now, Goudreau wasn't just some lone wolf operating in a vacuum. He actually tried to get official backing for this thing. He pitched his incredibly audacious plan to the highest levels of the Venezuelan opposition, the very group the U.S. recognized as the country's legitimate government at the time. So, the opposition, led by Juan Guaidó, was basically exploring any and all options to get Maduro out of power. This is what led his advisor, a guy named J.J. Rendon, to a meeting with Goudreau. And Goudreau laid out his whole plan, train up Venezuelan defectors and lead a mission to capture Maduro. And the price tag for this whole thing, well, it was absolutely staggering. Goudreau claimed he had secret backers who would cover the startup costs, but if he succeeded, he wanted a payment of $212 million from the new government.
But here's the thing. Goudreau's confidence came with a huge catch. He demanded total secrecy. When Rendon asked the obvious question, okay, who are these powerful, mysterious backers? Goudreau just flat out refused to say. And for the opposition, that was a massive red flag. You kind of want to know who you're getting into business with.
Yeah, that was it. That was the final straw. With way too many risks and not enough answers, Rendon and Guaido's team pulled the plug. They cut all ties with Guaidó, paid him $50 grand for his expenses, just to, as they put it, wash their hands clean of the whole thing. The official political backing, it was gone.
So, and this is the crucial question. If the deal was dead, why in the world did the mission still go ahead? This is where the operation goes from just being risky to being completely reckless. Because the truth is, it was compromised long before any of those boats ever hit the water.
I mean, just look at this timeline. It shows you just how badly the mission was exposed. Over a month before the raid even happened, Venezuelan authorities found a huge stash of weapons, and they publicly named Goudreau, Denman, and Berry at a press conference. The element of surprise was completely gone. Then, a key ally of theirs, General Alcalá, surrendered to the U.S., and even after all that, Goudreau launched the raid anyway. It's just unbelievable.
So how did it all get so compromised? Well, experts basically point to a perfect storm of failures. First, just terrible operational security, or OPSEC, meaning careless phone calls and emails were almost certainly being monitored.
Second, it's highly probable that Maduro's intelligence services had spies inside the group from day one. And finally, some of the members might have been blackmailed and forced to become informants. Now, here's a really key point. According to his family, Luke Denman honestly believed he was on a U.S. government-backed mission. But the official denial from Washington was swift and absolute. President Trump himself completely disavowed it, saying, and I quote, "If we'd have been involved, it would have gone differently."
All right, so let's get to the fallout. What happened to everybody after the dust settled? Well, the consequences were severe, and they reached every single person involved in this bizarre affair.
For the two Americans on the ground, Luke Denman and Aaron Berry, the immediate outcome was grim. They were put on trial in a Venezuelan court and sentenced to a staggering 20 years in prison.
But the story didn't end there. As you can see, the fates of the key players are all over the map. Denman and Berry, they were eventually freed in a prisoner swap in late 2023. Jordan Goudreau, the mastermind, is now wanted by the FBI. Juan Guaidó, the opposition leader who backed out, is living in exile. General Alcalá is serving a very long prison sentence. And the one person who remains right where he was? Nicolás Maduro, the target of the whole failed coup.
So, in the end, what do we make of all this? Was it heroic ambition, a tragic miscalculation, or was it just a sophisticated intelligence trap from the start? The real answer is probably a messy combination of all three. But one thing is for sure. Operation Gideon is a wild cautionary tale that in the world of covert ops, the line between a Hollywood movie and a tragic farce can be incredibly thin. And the consequences, they are all too real.